Welcome to Lesson 6-4, Models for Multiplying Decimals. Our learning goal will be to find products of whole numbers and decimals to the 10,000s. Okay, our next learning goal will be the standard multiplication algorithm involving decimals is an extension of the standard algorithm for multiplying whole numbers. So this just talks about how when we're multiplying decimals, we need to follow those same steps for if they were just whole numbers. And then just like with the last lesson, once we've done the multiplication using that same algorithm, then we learn how to put our decimal in the appropriate place. For this lesson, there are no new vocabulary terms, but please make sure you write down both learning goals. And then let's move on to our first practice problem. Here's our example first, and it's very similar to the example that we learned about in lesson 6-3. We're just going to be working with more decimal place value places in these examples. In the example, 1 8/100 times 94 2/10. This is the one we're going to be looking at. Decimal multiplication is the same as whole number multiplication, except the decimal point is needed if the product is not a whole number. So again, we're going to be practicing what we looked at in the last lesson. Since 108 and 942, when we multiply those together, we would get 101,736. And there are two places behind the decimal point in the first factor. So those two places are the 8 and the 0. And one place behind the decimal in the second factor. So that means the one place is where the 2 is, and the decimal point comes before it. This means there are a total of 3 places that are behind the decimal points in the answer, which is our product. So start at the right of the product and place the same number of decimal places in the product as there were in the two factors. So when we look at 1 8/100 times 94 and 4/10, we would get the answer of 101 and 736 thousandths. We had to move the decimal place 3 places. Okay, so this is very similar to what we did in 6-3. We're just going to be working with more decimal places in some of these examples. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at our first practice problem. For our first practice problem, we're looking at 45/100 times 3. Please work this out. Remember to work the problem just like they were whole numbers, but write it with the decimal place in it, and then we'll go ahead and move the decimal place to the appropriate spot once the problem is worked. Please work this on your own, and when you're ready to check, go ahead and press play and we'll work the problem together. Did you write 1 35/100? Well, let's look at how we got that answer. Okay, we have 45/100 times 3. 5 times 3 is 15. 4 times 3 is 12, plus one more is 13. Okay, now I have 2 decimal places. So if I start right here, which is if the number was 135, this is where the decimal point would be, and I've got to move it 2 places. 1, 2. So I get 1 35/100. Okay, let's take a look at our next practice problem. We have 7/10 times 4. Please work the problem and press play whenever you're ready to check it with me. Did you write 2 8/10? Right, we have 7/10 times 4. 7 times 4 is 28. 0 times 4 is 0, plus 2 more is 2. Now I have to take care of my decimal point. It's moved 1 decimal place. So I start here and I move it 1 decimal place. Oops, let's go back to that. So if I moved it that 1 decimal place, it would be right there. 2 and 8/10. Okay, let's take a look at our next practice problem. 5/10 times 3/10. Please work the problem, press play while you do so, and when you're ready to check your answer with mine, please press play so we can take a look at it together. Did you write 15 hundredths? Let's take a look at the problem together. 5/10 times 3/10. 5 times 3 is 15. 0 times 3 is 0 plus 1 more, be 1. Now I can go ahead and continue to work this problem. 0 plus 5, or times 5 is 0. 0 times 0 is 0. I would add. Okay, now I have one decimal place in 5/10, and I have another decimal place in 3/10. So I would need to move the decimal point over 1, 2 places. So that would give me the answer of 15 hundredths. Let's take a look at our next problem. And it is our word problem. Connor displayed 4 paintings side by side in one row. Each painting has the same width, which is 36 hundredths meters wide. What is the total width of the 4 paintings? Now remember, in the word problem, make sure that you know what the important information is and maybe even underline what is important. Take a moment, work out the word problem, and then we'll work it together. Did you write 1 and 44 hundredths meters? Well, let's go ahead and work the problem. We have 36 hundredths meters, and we have 4 paintings. So we are going to multiply 6 times 4 is 24. 3 times 4 is 12, plus 2 more is going to be 14. 0 times 4 is 0, plus 1 more is 1. Now we have to move our decimal point 1, 2 places, because that's how many there are in our factors. And so if we start right here where the decimal point would be if this answer was 144, we'd move it 1, 2 places. So we get 1 and 44 hundredths meters. And it's always so important for us to label. Okay, good job if you got that one. Now it's time to challenge yourself. The fastest speed a ping pong ball has been hit is 21 and 12 hundredths times faster than the speed for the fastest swimmer, which is 5 miles per hour. What is the speed of the ping pong ball? Be sure to read this carefully, show all of your work in your journal, explain your answer, and come to school ready to check your answer tomorrow. Good luck. Now we're ready to finish up. Please go back and review your learning goals. Have you mastered all of them? Do you need to go back and review or practice again? In your journal, write down if you were at a 1, a 2, or a 3 in your learning. It's really important to go back and review and to make sure you really got what the lesson was about in order to do well on the quiz tomorrow. So if you need to go back and work the problems more than once, that's a great thing to do. That's a good math strategy, so please do that. In your journal, write down 1 or more questions you might still have from this lesson. If you don't have any questions, you don't need to write anything down, but if you're still wondering, how do I know where to move the decimal point or things like that, please write that in your journal so that we'll remember to talk about them in class tomorrow. See you tomorrow with all of your work done and ready to learn. Great job.